Thank you for joining us today. My name is Misty Strubing. This short presentation is going to show you how you can add the wages for employees that were subject to the Hire Act in 2010 to the W-2 and W-3. As you are probably already aware, because this was a temporary change, Businessworks did not make any program changes to account for the hire credit throughout the year. We did make changes, however, so that the W-3 worksheet from within Sage Businessworks does have the correct line for the higher wages, as well as we have added so that you can place code CC for a valid code for box 12. The one thing that you will need is those changes were made with Service Pack 7 or version 2011. So in order to have those changes in your program, you would need to be on Sage Businessworks version 2010 Service Pack 7 or Sage Businessworks version 2011. So in a previous tutorial, we did show a possible workaround to account for the Hire Act credit throughout the year. This is the Sage Businessworks company that I used for that example. So we're just quickly going to go into payroll, employees, maintain employees, so that we can see the employee that we used for that example. We can see the Employee Hire Act, and if we go into the totals for that employee, we can see that the quarter-to-date and year-to-date wages were $600, but the company OASDI was $0. That was to account for the credit. Now what we need to do, though, is because it's end of year, those $600 in wages need to appear in box 12 of the employee's W-2 with a code of CC. As with anything else that goes on the W-2, you do want to check with your CPA to verify that they do want you to place these wages in box 12 and that the code that you should be using is CC. Okay, so now what we're going to do is actually set this up, and we're going to set this up as a company paid deduction. So we need to go to payroll, utilities, maintain deductions. I'm going to give this an ID of hire for the Hire Act. We want the method to be variable entered on time card because each employee that was subject to the Hire Act is going to have a different dollar amount of wages that needs to be added to their box 12 of the W-2. The category is going to be company individual. We will explain a little bit more when we go into the processing of this why we've chosen company individual, but the basic reason is we want to be able to process this as a $0 net check to add the total dollar amount that we want into box 12 of the W-2. So you will want to check with your CPA for the credit account and debit account that they would like you to use for this transaction. But I have created an account that I'm going to select for both. It is just called Hire Act. I'm going to deselect the taxable boxes because this is a company paid deduction and we are going to process a $0 payroll check. If I had left the taxable boxes selected, what would happen is it would add the dollar amount of this company paid deduction also to those boxes of wages on the W-2 as well as box 12, and that's not what we want. Now we need to select the W-2 button. We're getting a message because the account that I have chosen is not one of the suggested types, but I'm just going to leave it alone. So now that we're in the W-2 section, we want to uncheck the None box, and we're going to place this in box 12. And the code that we're going to use is CC. Now I'm going to save this company paid deduction. The next step is to add this deduction to each employee record that we need to process a $0 payroll check for to add the Hire Act wages onto their W-2. So I'm going to go to payroll, employees, maintain employees, select deductions, and I'm going to select the Hire Act, accept that, and save the employee record. I'm going to check in my totals, and I know for this employee that the wages that need to go into box 12 is the $600. So the next step is to process a $0 payroll check for that company paid deduction. So to do that, we're going to go to Payroll, Processing, Time Card Entry. I'm going to select my Hire Act employee. In the earnings, I'm going to select the Hire Act company paid deduction that I had previously set up. This is available here because I chose variable entered on time card. I'm going to enter the $600, accept, and save that. Now I'm going to run an automatic payroll calculation by going to Payroll, Processing, Automatic Payroll Calculation. I'm just going to select my Hire Act employee and say OK. Once it's done calculating, I'll be able to preview the payroll register. Now on the payroll register, we can see that there are 0 taxes that were taken out, but the Hire Act for $600 was calculated, but because it's a company paid, the net pay is $0. Now if there was any taxes here for federal or state, what you could do is you could go into manual calculation and zero those out so that you are truly getting a $0 net check. But in most circumstances, this is how it should look on the first calculation. So the next step is printing this $0 check. Remember, we have to print the check because nothing is actually posted in Businessworks until the check is printed. So I will go to Payroll, Processing, Print Payroll Checks. I will select my Hire Act employee. I'm going to change my starting check number to check number 1 because I don't want to waste one of my actual check numbers. I am printing this on white paper. I can then later go back into the payroll parameters and change that check number back to my live check number. The last day of pay period and check printing date are fine, so I'm going to select OK. I don't need an alignment test. After looking at the check, everything looks fine, so I'm going to select OK. Then my check register comes up and I can preview that. And we can see that even though there was a deduction on this check for $600, the net pay and the gross pay were both $0. So the next thing that I want to do is print the W-2s and the W-3 out of Businessworks so that we can see clearly what has happened to this employee's W-2 and the W-3 worksheet from what we've just done. So I'm going to go to Payroll, Taxes, Print W-2 Forms. For this example, I'm going to select Don't Verify. Now remember, we need to have the Include All Employees checkbox selected in order to get the W-3 worksheet also. And I am going to change this to a document writer because I want to be able to bring the file up and show you what's happened to the W-2. Then I will select Print. I don't need an alignment test. And yes, it's okay to save the W-2 information. So I just need to save that. I'm going to save it actually to my desktop so it's easy to access. And then I don't need to print any more copies. So the first thing, we can look at the W-3 worksheet because we can just preview it. So previewing the W-3 worksheet, it has all of the typical information, but if we scroll down, we now have a box or a line 12B for the higher exempt wages and tips, and the amount that we ran with that code of CC for box 12 tells it that those same dollar figures need to print here on the W-3 worksheet. So as you can see, the $600 is showing in the correct location. So now we're just going to minimize Businessworks so we can get to the desktop and open the W-2 file that I have saved. I'm going to make this a little bit larger so that we can actually see it. And as you can see, this is the area that would be box 12 if we had our forms. And you can see that there is the $600 with the code of CC for that company paid deduction that we have set up. So this workaround does provide a way so that you can get those Hire Act wages that were subject to the Hire Act in the correct box on the W-2 with the correct code as well as on the W-3 worksheet. We would like to thank you for joining us for this quick presentation. And if you do have any questions about this, you can call the customer support department and we would be happy to discuss the workaround. Thank you.